Hey guys, my name is Anna Fowler, and I'm a missionary kid living in Ethiopia with my two older brothers, Zane and Ezra, and my parents, Craig and Alison. My family has lived in Ethiopia for 14 years, but I've only lived there for 13 because I was born in Addis Ababa.
Hi, this is Craig.
And this is Allison, and we're Anna's parents. Our ministry in Ethiopia consists of 5 major activities.
First, we are involved in planting churches. Over the last 14 years, we have partnered with our local Ethiopian church partners to plant over 25 churches. Currently, we are working with 8 church planters to plant 6 churches among the Oromo, Gumus, and Berta peoples. Second, we are involved in training and building up the leadership of the 130 or so established churches that our organization, CMF, partners with. This includes preaching at conferences and doing trainings with evangelists and elders.
The third thing we do is to run a clean water project in places that need clean water sources. We use these wells to show the love of God in a tangible way. Every year we dig 3 water wells and do a series of trainings on basic health and hygiene in these remote villages. By doing so, we develop relationships with the people of these communities. We use these wells to strengthen the churches and to open up opportunities to share the gospel.
Fourth, I am the team leader for the CMF Ethiopia team. Our team consists of 15 missionaries working in different parts of Ethiopia. As team leader, I get to interact, encourage, and support the CMF team as we plant churches, work with the urban poor, train leaders, and operate other life-changing ministries.
Fifth, I'm the field business administrator. This means that I oversee all the finances and ministry spending of our team in Ethiopia.
Again, without you, none of these ministries could be happening. Because of your support, people are hearing about Jesus for the very first time. Pastors and elders are being trained. Clean water is being given to the thirsty, and churches are becoming more self-sustaining. Thank you. Together, we are growing the kingdom of God here in Ethiopia.
Hey, this is Anna again. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Well, Court Street, it's been 4 years since the Fowlers were here on furlough. They're longtime partners of ours in ministry. Would you welcome Craig and Alison to the stage? So happy to be with you guys again. Yep. You have good history with the church here at Court Street. Why don't you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I know some of you from a very long time ago. I was connected with this church on the very day I was born. My parents were supported as missionaries in Puerto Rico when I was born there in Puerto Rico by this church, by Court Street Christian Church. So I've had a very long history with Court Street. I was in the youth group here. I was actually in, Ben Bryson, his first youth group. I was one of his kids in his youth group. I was I think a junior or senior. I can't remember which year it was. I was baptized in the kitchen, actually. Over there. It used to be a baptistry. I walked in there last time I was here, and I was like, where did it go? So, and I worked at the daycare for many years. My mom worked there, and I helped her, and then I ended up working there in high school. So I've had a very long history with Court Street. And actually, Court Street was the church that got us involved with the organization that we're in now. You all sent us, Allison and I, on an internship to Chile back when we were in college. And so over the years, Court Street has been extremely influential in my life personally, but also in our life and working towards missions. And even now, obviously, as a supporting church of ours in Ethiopia. So we really appreciate your
Lots of good history,
yeah.
And part of your tenure here is kind of legendary. Allison, how would you describe his hairstyle when he left here to go off to college?
I think it's called a mullet.
It's called a mullet, yeah. He was rocking the mullet, yep. And
I'm looking better every day. That's
improving with age. Yeah, that's good. How did you guys get into missions, specifically the Ethiopian missions? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, Craig and I met in college, and within the first couple weeks of us getting together and hanging out, he said, "Now I want you to know I'm planning on going into missions full time. So if you're not interested, then that's probably going to affect our relationship. It'll probably come to an end quickly." So I assured him, in fact, I actually was interested in missions. And it took him a while to actually believe me. But eventually we realized we both were interested in missions long term. And Craig had mentioned we went on this internship to Chile that Court Street was a part of. And we went there thinking maybe we're interested in missions long term in a Spanish-speaking setting, since Craig had grown up in Puerto Rico. But our trip there was informative in that it showed us we are for sure interested in long-term missions, but we're not interested in South America. I had interest in going somewhere where I could use my nursing skills in a place that really needed it. And so eventually we ended up in Tennessee, where Craig went to seminary. And at the church there, he was a youth minister, and we met some missionaries who were retired missionaries with CMF in Ethiopia. And they were specifically recruiting for a young couple to come to Ethiopia to open up a new station in a very remote setting to work with a people group. And we went on a trip to visit, and in that trip we knew this is for sure where God's wanting us to be. So that's specifically Ethiopia.
Yeah, excellent. What are some of the surprises that you've had while working in missions? Like maybe the things that weren't quite what you expected it to be. Like, tell us some of those stories.
Well, one of them, we were talking about this because we cheated, and he gave us the questions ahead of time. So we're
Not all of them. There's
there's
something coming. So
one of the things that actually surprises a lot of people, and it surprised me when I moved to Ethiopia, and we moved into a very remote area. You can see the next picture if you want to hit the next slide. You can see we worked with a tribal people in a very remote area, kind of grass hut, National Geographic kind of area. And you think that's exciting, cool, and it is for about a week. And then every day it keeps happening over and over. It's the same grass huts you're walking into every day. So one of the things that really surprised me about working in a remote area was the monotony of it. I thought it'd be really cool, exciting every day. And it was some days, but it wasn't every day. So that probably, for me, is one of the things that jumped out, is the monotony of working in a remote place.
I think another thing is, when we went into missions, we thought we're going to help people, through medical work, through water wells, through just sharing the gospel with people. We're there to help them. But I think one of the big surprises is we actually needed the people we were going to work with. We needed them in a way that we didn't expect, and they actually helped us in a lot of different ways. But one particular time was, Craig had mentioned, we live in a really remote area, very difficult to get to. We were always struggling to get in and out and down the road, and we were stuck in the rain on our road one particular time, just buried in the mud, had been digging for several hours, and then it started raining again, and it was getting dark, and there was no way we were going to get out that night. And one of the local guys who lived maybe 5 minutes away in a grass hut came and said, "Hey, why don't you come spend the night at my house?" And I didn't really want to. I wasn't excited. I was like, "Oh, no, I'd rather stay in the car." And, it just didn't seem like a very comfortable setting. It was definitely stepping out of my comfort zone. But we followed him to his hut, about a 5 or 10 minute walk away. We had all of our kids. Our youngest, Anna, was 1 year old at the time. And we got to his house. We were covered in mud. And the first thing his wife did was got out a bucket of water and just washed our feet for us. And it was an extremely humbling experience. And they served us. They showed us the love of God that day in a way that we did not expect. And that has stuck with us for a long time. We still have a relationship with that family. But there have been several times where they have just shown us the love of God in a way that we didn't expect, and have helped us out of some pretty difficult situations.
Wow, beautiful.
And I would also add that just the relationships that we develop, and actually in Ethiopia we are an employer a lot of times in a lot of different kind of settings. We run a health project, water projects. I work with a lot of evangelists, and some of them are kind of employer type relationships, and that was one of the things that was really difficult to get used to for both of us. Allison at the clinic, and I'm working with evangelists and other people working under me. The next picture, you can show that next picture. The guy here in the picture actually was one of our employees. I'm going to just tell a quick story about him. His name is Johannes, the tall guy to Allison's left, I guess it is, or yeah, her left. And he was a young guy that came to Christ early in our ministry, and he lived in our village. And he had a family history, etc., with the folks in our village, obviously. So we're very connected to him. But he was a guard in our clinic at the beginning. He eventually, because of his language abilities, he knows maybe 4 languages, something like that. So whenever a different person would come into the clinic, he would do a lot of translating for them. There's a lot of Arabic and some other languages that we worked in. Eventually, he worked his way up so that he was helping Allison with shots and all kinds of different things. Eventually, we sent him to nursing school. Now he is one of the main leaders in our church in a place called APAR. And he is a nurse working for the government clinic in that village. And he's a really strong leader in our church. He's also one of the people, if you'll hit the next slide, he's also one of the people that is a recipient of clean water from one of our wells. You can see the picture there of one of our wells, some girls getting water. But one of the important things that we're doing there in Ethiopia is clean water. Johannes, the guy that we sent to nursing school, his family's 3 kids and him get their daily water from one of the wells that has been dug. So one of the things that kind of surprised us was just that relationship that we developed with people, that employer-employee relationship, local people kind of relationship, just how close we got to somebody who came from a very different setting, environment, upbringing than us.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it's been a delight for us as a church to get to partner with you guys. Prayers, always, you guys are in the mix on that. And then also financially, you might not know this, but some of the money that goes into these offering boxes or that you send via PushPay, that funds different ministries and different missions, both locally and around the world. And yours is one that we partner with on a consistent basis. And then also, it's been a real delight to, at the holidays and different key times, we've put you guys in the spotlight and raised money for specific projects. You might remember we've helped to train some pastors. We also helped to fund some transportation things that you guys were facing, as well as some of the wells that we've seen the pictures of. And so all that stuff is just so awesome. I remember you mentioned something too just now that I find really compelling that I hadn't thought of as part of the ministry, which was being an employer. Yeah. And just the reality is, when you're employing somebody, that gives people a special level of dignity to be able to make a contribution, earn income from their family. And I remember one story that you'd sent over maybe a year or 2 ago, that there was a disabled gentleman that you met in one of the villages who was disqualified for most of the typical employment, but he became employed actually caring for the well and training people how to use it, which was just beautiful, beautiful
Absolutely.
stuff.
Yeah, he's still working. He doesn't work for us directly, but he works for the community, because when we hand the wells over to the community, he's the guy who oversees that well in a place called Baruda. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You've been doing this for 14 years. Yeah, 14 years on the mission field. That's pretty amazing. And what keeps you doing it? Like, what's still fresh in your heart about the passion for this work?
I think for both of us, it really comes down to the stories that we create or that we're involved in, stories of transformation. I wanted to tell you a story of a friend of mine, if you want to hit the next slide. His name is Sufyan. Sufyan, I want to read to you actually some of his own words, because I think that's maybe more powerful than what I could say. But Sufyan grew up in a Muslim family, a very large Muslim family. His father was actually married to 3 different wives, and so his mother and his many brothers and sisters grew up very strongly Muslim. When he was a teenager, something happened. His mom and one of his stepbrothers became Christians. This created a lot of problems within their family. Eventually, Sufyan tried to convince his mom and his brother to leave Christianity and return to Islam. I did an interview with him not too long ago, it was last year, and it was in Amharic, but I'm not going to read it to you in Amharic. I'll read it to you in English. I think it'll be easier.
You're going to translate in real time here?
I'm going to translate on
Oh
the
boy,
spot,
this is
so,
exciting.
yeah,
Is he good at this?
He does pretty well.
He does pretty
Maybe I
well?
should make
She's
you
got
translate.
confidence. Yeah. All right, take us away. Let's hear it.
This is what he said. This is in the interview. He said, "I was very angry with them," his mother and brother, "for leaving the Muslim religion. I continually pressured my mother and stepbrother to return to Islam. Finally, I convinced my mother that she should return to Islam, but Kadir, his brother, would not listen to me. One night, I tricked Kadir into coming with me to a local Muslim witch doctor. Through spells and magic, I finally succeeded in making Kadir deny his faith in Jesus. I thought I was finally free of this character named Jesus, but I was wrong." That's my favorite part of this story right there. I like that. From that night on, I began to be heavily oppressed. I lost my job at the tea shop, and my firewood business became strangely unprofitable. I couldn't sleep, I became depressed, and I was in great despair. Finally, one night I had a dream, and in my dream I heard a voice that said, "You will say that Jesus is Lord." I was very bothered by this dream. I was strong in my Muslim faith. I did not want to turn my back on my religion and my family. Slowly, my mind began to change after this dream. I began to think about Jesus all the time. Finally, I bought a Bible and I read it. I knew there was a small group of Christians who met every Sunday in my village. I visited with them on Sunday and began to hear more and more about Jesus. After this, his family began persecuting him to the point where he had to leave his village of Metu and go to a place called Nekempt. And in Nekempt, he got connected with one of the churches that we work with. He became a pretty strong leader in that church. And then fast forward a number of years, that was when he was a teenager when he moved to Nekempt. Fast forward, he was married, and then a few years ago, he had another dream, another vision. And I want to read to you what he says about that. He said, "I had another vision, and in this vision, God told me that I was supposed to become an evangelist. In the vision, God told me that I should wait for a letter and that I would be told in the letter that I would, where I was to serve as an evangelist. I spoke with the elders of my church and they agreed that this vision was true." What's really interesting was immediately after he had this vision, I was looking to go plant churches in a bunch of different areas. So I sent a letter to his church and to a number of other churches asking if they had any young men, women who are interested in helping me plant churches. When the elders of his church received this letter, they automatically made the connection, which was very obvious at the time. Because one of the places I listed for wanting to plant churches was a place called Metu, which is where this guy was from. And so about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we started training him. About a year and a half ago, we sent him out to plant churches right next to Metu, a little town called Yayo. And in the last year, in 2018 calendar year, there were over 50 baptisms that happened through this guy. This guy is really on fire. You can see up in the picture one of them. They're really exciting events. Actually, Ethiopian baptisms are very exciting in a lot of different ways. If you want to know other ways in which they're exciting, talk to me after the service because there's some really fun stories about baptisms. But one of the things that makes me excited that to answer your question, it's a long way to answer your question, but is to work with guys like Sufyan. That never gets old. It never gets old to see God working in people's lives, to see guys like Sufyan not only be transformed, but be part of the transformation process. You can see in the picture, it's not the guy getting baptized, it's Sufyan. It's the guy in the yellow shirt helping me baptize one of the guys that he brought to Christ. If you hit the next picture, you can see a better picture of him. He's the one right next to me in this picture. He's a short guy in stature, but a tall guy in energy. He's very energetic. What's really cool is that Sufyan is not a guy who just sits there, okay, he got 50 baptisms, great. About 5 months ago, he convinced a number of the people in his church to leave the church and go start another church in another village of Dorani is the name of the village. So you can see where he is a guy who starts this chain of reaction of new baptisms, of excitement about Jesus, growing churches. He started 2 churches in the last 2 years.
Wow.
That makes me excited. That's what I'm excited.
Yeah, good stuff.
I think another thing that keeps us going after 14 years is we can see that, you know, it takes years to learn the culture, learn the language, understand, build relationships. And so the longer we're there, the deeper those relationships become, the more we understand. And so we can tell that just in the past 2 or 3 years, our effectiveness is more than our first 6 to 8 years. And so I think that's just really encouraging and motivating. We can see even the fruit coming from the first 6 to 8 years. And so that's motivating. And on top of that, we work with a really, really great team of other missionaries. We work with 4 other families, CMF families on our team, all in different parts of Ethiopia, but we all have the same goals we're working towards, and it's just motivating to be on a team together, including you guys.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I promised you some questions I didn't prepare you for. So these are just kind of more down to earth, like kind of human questions, just to connect the church. What's the American food that you most look forward to when you come back?
Well, I'll say this: as soon as we hit the ground, our kids wanted to all hit Taco Bell. So we've hit Taco Bell too many times already. So
I'll also say that we don't agree on this answer.
Yeah.
I tend to go more towards really good salads and stuff and good granola, and pretty much everybody else in my family goes for fast food.
Okay. Yeah.
But our favorite thing to do is do gas station stops, where we stop at a gas station or 7-Eleven and we all run in and pick out what we want, because then you have a variety. You can go healthy, you can go junk, you can do whatever you like.
All right. Well, there's a step above that here in Salem. There's a place called The Yard. It's a food truck pod. So you could go there and everybody could get a little of something. So, and it's just a little tiny step above the gas station thing. So, you know, maybe this, you know, there you go. There's a good lead for you. Allison, you're a runner, and actually you both are, and your family really is as well. And you came to Salem, ran a race yesterday like it was nothing. But what would be your ideal distance to run, to just go out and tear off how many miles?
Probably 6 to 7 is the ideal, where I feel good, but I'm not in pain yet.
6 to 7's no thing for you, and it's just a good little jog, huh? All right. And Craig, if you could play any professional sport and do it really well, which one would you want to play?
Well, I played soccer when I was here, but soccer seems like it's a lot of work now. So.
All right. So where would you?
Rugby. I'd like to be really good at rugby.
Yeah, rugby's a lot less work. Yeah,
that's less work, a lot more banging into each
other. Here's a pop question for Craig, and you have to answer within 1 second. Here you go. How long have you been married?
23 years. 23.
23. He got it. Did he nail it?
I think so.
I think so. You guys are made for each other. That's great. Yeah. Allison, what was your first impression of Craig when you guys met?
Well,
you should have given her the
okay.
Is that just the answer?
I'll be honest. He wore shorts all the time. We went to college in Illinois, so I mean they've got a lot colder than it does here. He wore shorts all the time, and he had pretty good legs because he played soccer.
Oh, yeah. He wore his shorts short and his hair long, and he had you at hello. Oh, good stuff. Describe to us like your favorite Ethiopian dish. Like, what's the national food that you would really like? Man, I'd love to share this with you.
Well, Ethiopians eat something called injera, which is a spongy. If you've ever been to Ethiopia, and a few of you have, it's a spongy kind of sourdough bread. So they eat that with lots of different sauces. They're called what? So. I think the best is the one where it comes with a chicken egg, doro what it's called, and chicken egg and chicken meat and kind of spicy. That's probably.
Is this one where you like take the special bread and like dip it in and kind of scoop it up
they're
like
all like that.
They're all like
that.
Yeah,
They do it. Now there's something called kea, which is what the Gumus people drink. The darker folks that we work with. There was 2 different kinds of Ethiopians, brown and black. We work primarily for many years with very dark Ethiopians. They eat something called kea, which is a fermented kind of milkshakey kind of drink made from sorghum. We call them amoeba shakes. That's what we call them. That's not what they call them.
What?
Because they're not very tasty. But Anna, who grew up there, she grew up there from little. She likes them, but the rest of them us aren't get
Yeah.
on those.
Yeah.
So.
Speaking of your kids too, they like talking with people, interacting, answering questions. That's something that they really wanted to say. Hey, come chat with them, and don't pinch their cheeks or do anything. That's cheesy, church, But give them, they'd love to tell you more about the ministry and their perspective on things, and they'll be available after this.
Yeah, especially the younger two.
The younger two, especially.
If you want to get them talking, you got to talk to Anna or Ezra.
Anna or Ezra. All right. Yep.
Zane's more of an introvert. So.
Good. That's like me. I can respect that. What would you say to the church about missions and just the future, what you're looking at, and specifically how our partnership is a blessing and what it might look like in the future?
Okay. Well, I would say this with Ethiopia. We've transitioned our ministry in a lot of ways. We now do not live in a very remote area. We live in a very big city, 5 million people, of Addis Ababa. We do get down country often. One of the big transitions for us has been to transition really to less medical, more water projects. So probably working into the future, we see the value of connecting with villages and different churches and things like that through our water project. It costs about $15,000 to dig a well. Every single well we dig 3 of them a year. But 500 people every single day get their water from one of our wells. So you can see the impact it makes. So far we've dug 10 of these wells. So that's 5,000 people every single day. Today, tomorrow, the next day, that get their drinking water from these wells. That makes a big impact. So for us, probably moving into the future, that's going to continue to be an important part of our ministry. We're obviously involved in church planting as well, and we will continue to do that. We're interested in expanding into some more areas. We now have 6 church plants going. We're thinking more like 20 church plants we'd like to be going at the same time. We work directly with those church planters. We also work with church leaders, so we're going to continue to do that as well. We don't do this by ourselves, and Allison mentioned this, but I want to put it out there. We work with a team of other missionaries because what we're finding, and I'm sure it's true here in Salem, it's true anywhere in the world, Christianity isn't an individual sport. It's a team sport. We do it together. We partner with you. We partner with other missionaries. We partner with our local people. So probably working into the future, those are the big areas we're thinking about.
Great, great. Any last words, any last thoughts, anything we didn't cover before I pray over you?
Well, I just say again that we really appreciate, we have felt a ton of support from Court Street, from this community here. And we just really appreciate, like Craig said, we can't do it alone, and we definitely feel the support and the partnership, and you guys are a big part of it.
Excellent.
Even this very small things, you all have really supported us in the big things, obviously the big well projects, the church planting, but we had car problems on the way here, and somebody from this church is helping us greatly with fixing our car and other kinds of things. So we feel very supported by Court Street. We really appreciate you guys. Well,
we love you guys, and just it's a privilege to be able to support you guys and get to be a part of this with you. So, hey, let's bow our heads in a word of prayer and just pray God's best over you. Lord, thank you for just the stories, the life change, all the beautiful things that are happening through the Fowler family and their work in Ethiopia. God, we're humbled to hear about it. We're humbled that we get to be a part of it. And we're inspired, Lord, to continue to lean into you through prayer, to lean into you through giving our finances, and even for some of us, some of our time, how we can directly support them and partner with them. God, I just pray a blessing over their family. I know that on this trip, as they're out here, their oldest is going to be enrolling in college here in the States, and that's a big transition. And so, God, just be the center of their family, comfort them, and give them a really beautiful connection, even though they'll be many miles apart. Lord, for each of us in this room, I also want to just say, God, open our hearts to you in a fresh way. For us here in America, often it feels optional to say yes to Jesus. And hearing these stories just reminds us of the power of that. Maybe there's even someone in this room who's being compelled to say, you know what, God's been tugging on my heart, and I need to look into going out into the world to preach the gospel in this way. Lord, do all these things and more. Thank you again for the gift that the Fowlers are, a blessing over them and their ministry, I say in Jesus' good name. Amen. Amen. Round of applause for these two. Love you both. Thank you very much. Yep. I'll take those. Well, what an absolute treat to get to spend time with these beautiful people, huh? We're going to close our service with a couple of worship songs and also a time of communion. Afterwards, you'll have a few minutes between services to chat with the Fowlers. They'll be available either in here or they also have a display out in the lobby, and they would love to talk with you, share more stories. So please linger and just soak up your time with them. And they're very engaging, very wonderful people. We're going into a time of communion now, and communion is a time where we pass a tray around here that has 2 cups stacked on it. There's a cup of juice on the top, a cup of bread on the bottom, and this is where we remember the sacrifice of Jesus Christ, the one who laid down his life in such a way that people would say things like the Fowlers are of, I want to leave home. I want to go to a foreign place and just tell people about the goodness of God because God has loved me so much. We get to remember that now. We get to share this beautiful sacrament. And so bow your heads with me in a word of prayer, and we'll receive communion together. Jesus, thank you. Thank you for setting the example of loving, willing sacrifice, of looking at others and not just seeing them as the sum of their sins, but looking at others and seeing the image of God in them, calling that out even to the point that you would love, to the point of sacrifice and the point of death. We get to celebrate that now, and may that pattern, may that love well up in our hearts and be extended to others. Pray in Jesus' good name. Amen.